As I grew older, I started to feel kind of embarrassed to talk about this topic in a way because men having sensitive or chaotic emotions is somewhat shunned. And pretty much as I get older, I'm just not interested in lying anymore. What I'm interested in is truth, is figuring out what is really going on. And part of that it involves seeing things clearly. And one thing that I've experienced a lot of is just emotional chaos, especially when I was a kid and growing older into my 20s, teens. It was just I never was sure really how I felt about something. I was never it was just always confusing, and the emotions I would experience would always be incredibly confusing and wouldn't really seem relevant to the moment. I mean, in the moment, they would seem like a reasonable response to a situation. But then I look back and I'm like, okay, I was never really responding to what's in front of me. There was always some sense of emotions from the past coming up in this confusing way that doesn't make any sense. It's chaos, and in some ways, I think it is responsible for a lot of success that I've had in terms of just building disciplines and skills and various things that sometimes certain people struggle with, but because of the chaos that I have to deal with inside, things outside of myself give me some form of stability and meaning because I can't rely on what's inside. And this is a drug like response to a situation where, we kind of put our head in the sand. We're experiencing inner turmoil. So we look to the outside in order to try to resolve it. And when we do this, we put our head in the sand. We just simply ignore what's going on inside. But I can't continuously try to fix everything, even though I've pretty much done that my whole life. There comes a point in time where you have to say, okay, this is how I am. Let's move forward in spite of it. And it doesn't mean you have to stop trying to heal things on the inside. It just means sometimes we have to function although there's chaos. And this is I wanted to make this a more practical video. A lot of my videos are about healing things at a deeper level, finding the core of the emotions and the complexities to try to release the vulnerabilities, the grief, the fear, the shame, and all that stuff. But this video is more practical, where I wanted to talk about some of my practical solutions to a life of emotional chaos. Looking at my younger years, I can see kind of where this comes from. It's twofold. One is that I grew up in a household where emotions weren't allowed. My emotions were not allowed. My parents were highly emotional, but they were so unable to deal with their own emotions that they pretty much forced the kids not to have any because it was inconvenient for them. It brought up their own emotions, etc. So I had a very repressive childhood where I couldn't really talk about anything honestly. I couldn't really express myself or emotions in any way, so I held everything in. And it was dangerous too, so I had to. Paired with, I think I have a somewhat, I guess you could say, sensitive nature where I tend to really dwell on things, and who knows if I was born like this or it was developed, I don't know. But it seems to play a part in it where something would happen and I would just dwell on it and try to understand it and feel it and all these things. In some ways, that has been good because I've had some artistic endeavors in terms of I was a classical musician when I was younger and things like that. And there can be that can be very beneficial in certain ways. But it can see that it contributed to this sense of chaos that I started to experience as I got older into my teens and 20s. So now that I'm nearly 40, I have learned practical ways to function despite the chaos. The primary thing that needs to happen is get the basics right. This means sleep. Do everything you can to make sure you sleep. Don't use sleeping aids. So this means that the way that I have the best sleep is I stop eating from 2 p.m. No food after 2 p.m. and I have a pretty good sleep generally. I take magnesium glycinate and that helps as well, some glycine sometimes. But if I get a good sleep, everything is better. This seems to be primary. The things that affect sleep are numerous, like food mainly. So get your diet on point. Do what you need to do. If your sleep is getting worse, then you know your diet is not working. So you need to change it. You may need to experiment with no chemicals, with healthy whole foods, with low carbs, ketogenic, carnivore, all the different diets. By now you must know them. Experiment until you get your sleep right. The diet as well will affect your ability to function despite the emotions. Exercise is very important. Do it every day. So these basics for me, if they are on point, everything else that I'm going to talk about becomes much easier. One of the main things I find is helpful is having a purpose, or at least having a goal. And the goal has to scare you a little bit. The goal has to be big enough to make you feel like you probably can't do it. Notice the word probably. You're not sure you might be able to, but you're pretty sure you can't. It's sort of at that level. Something like become rich, or, you know, become like a very high up manager at your job, or I don't know, whatever it is. Having this purpose or large goal tends to structure things differently in your life. It could be things like to do with your family. And this goal needs to be personal, though, of course. And then the chaos has meaning to it because it can give you energy. It can give you emotional energy where it's like, I need to beat this, I need to focus elsewhere. So you work harder and you're able to reach a high level of success because of these emotions. People that don't experience this chaos generally don't get as successful as they could be because they just don't have the motivation that we do. So that purpose or goal is essential. The next thing I would say is this thing that I made up called robot mode. I use this sometimes when things are really bad, or if I'm getting super distracted, or it's just I'm severely depressed or anxious or whatever it is. I'll go into robot mode, I call it, where I just make very simple decisions. Yes or no. I pretend that I'm a robot. I can only make a yes or no decision. So generally I look around and I look at what I need to do and I say yes and I do it. I look at what's happening while I'm doing it. It's yes or it's no. Tick or flick. This seems a bit silly, I guess maybe you could say. But when things get really bad, I just have to do stuff like this. The key here is to remain productive and remain outside of yourself. And I know it's difficult. That's why I sometimes implement these extreme measures, which it sounds kind of extreme to pretend you're a robot, maybe kind of silly. But it does seem to work for me. I think it creates some kind of mindfulness where I'm able to just see outside of the darkness and just keep going regardless of it. I know sometimes in amongst the chaos, everything seems pointless. And it's pretty much seems impossible to continue. This is where robot mode comes in, because in some way you are alive and you want to live. So we pretend that we can only make two decisions, yes or no. Binary. We are a computer, we are a robot, and we do what needs to be done. We know what we need to do, we know what our goals are, we know what is lying there, ready to be done, and we do it. We don't think about it, we just take action. These are very practical solutions. I wouldn't even say solutions, just practical survival techniques to get through the chaos. Meditation can help. There are many different types. The one that helps in this practical way is mindfulness meditation, focusing on the breath or focusing on an object and just trying to stay with it for as long as possible. Essentially, this is just training your focus, training your ability to remain conscious of something. And this may save you many times if you're amongst the chaos and the darkness, because it just gives you enough ability to focus outside of yourself and to just keep going. Just get up and go through the motions like a robot. I sometimes can get so, especially when I screw with things like probiotics, it seems to be probiotics in certain types of dairy. I guess probiotic dairy does it, like kefir. If I take these things, I get this utterly severe depression where it is just this fog of darkness where I'm unable to escape this cloudy hell that I exist in, and there is no way out. Nothing, anything anyone does, nothing I can do, nothing in the world that I could watch or see or whatever can reach me when I'm like that. It is gone, and it is terrifying. It is one of the most awful experiences I've ever experienced. And for me, it lasts 6 days if I take these things. So it terrifies me. But it being as it is, I still function. Like I said, this robot mode allows me to access this place where I just, in a sense, feel like, I don't want to use the word psychopath because I'm definitely not, but in some way I'm just like there's nothing. I'm just a robot. There is no meaning to anything, and I sit up and I just click yes or no, and I continue. And I function in this way for the 6 days, and then it goes away, it fades, and I feel more human again. I'm able to connect with the outside world. So this for me, this mode that I sort of use has saved me countless times. And really from there, I mean, one sort of basic philosophy, I guess you could say, that helps is that you need to do what you don't feel like doing. If you want to live a shitty life, then just do what you feel like doing all the time. If you want to lead a good life, you've got to do what you don't feel like doing. And because we are the ones that experience this emotional chaos, we don't feel like doing anything a lot of the time. So we really have to master this art of just going through the motions and doing what we don't feel like doing because we need to build a future. And that's everything, guys. I hope that helps. Cheers.